Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, let's pray and thanks to our God Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. The second, may salat and salam to our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Today I'd like to provide English materials, and I hope this can useful for you are and give good effect to your English knowledge. But before that, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Syukran and I'm from English Education 2019 Class A, State University of Makassar. Today our materials is about the present and informed approach. There are three main points of our topic today. The first one is introduction, the next is an enlightened elective approach, and the third is communicative language teaching. We move to the first one is introduction. By the end of the 1980th century, the profession had learned some profound lessons from our past wanderings. We had amassed enough research on learning and teaching that we could formulate an integrated approach. And perhaps, ironically, the methods that were such strong signposts of our century-old journey were no longer of great importance. A method as unified, cohesive, finite set of design features is now only mere attention. The focus in recent years has been on the development of classroom tasks and activities consonant with that we know about second language acquisition. David Noonan summed it up nicely by saying that there never was and probably never will be method for all. We move to the second main point. It's about an enlightened elective approach. As an enlightened elective teacher, you think in terms of number of possible methodological options at your disposal for tailoring classes to particular contexts. Your approach or rationale for language learning and teaching takes on great importance. It is inspired by the interconnection of all your reading and observing and discussing and of course teaching. The way you understand the language learning process may be relatively stable across months or years, but your approach to language pedagogy is not just a set of static principles set in stone. It is a dynamic composite of energies within you that change for sure change if you are a growing teacher. On the other hand, you might just surprise yourself at the institution you already have about the foundations of teaching. Here are the following selected list of potential that you may choose in designing a lesson. On the basis of what you know so far about second language acquisition and the pedagogical process, should think about which side of continuum of possibilities you would generally learn toward, and why you would learn that way, and the most important, what contextual variable might influence a change away from your general inclination. For example, the first item below asks you to choose between meaning and grammar for a focus. We move to the next is the interaction between your approach and your classroom practice is the key to the dynamic teaching. The best teacher always take a few calculated risks in the classroom, trying new activities here and there. The inspiration for such innovation comes from the approach level, but the feedback that this teacher gather from actual implementation then informs their overall understanding of what learning and teaching is, which in turn may give rise to new insight and more innovative possibilities, and the cycle continues. There are two reasons for variation at the approach level. The first one is An approach is by definition dynamic and therefore subject to some tinkering as a result of one's observation and experience. The next is research in second language acquisition and pedagogy almost always yields findings that are not consultative but are subject to interpretation. Well, we move to the last main point for our topic today. It's about communicative language teaching. Is there any currently recognized approach that is generally accepted norm in the field? A qualified yes can be captured in the term communicative language teaching or CLT. The qualification to that answer can be found in the numerous ways of defining CLT and plethora of interpretation. We are trying to get our learners to develop linguistic fluency, not just the accuracy. We are looking at the learners as partners in a cooperative feature. Our classroom practice seeks to draw on whatever sparks learners to reach their fullest potential. CLT is unified but broadly based. Theoretically well-informed set of the text about the nature of language and of language learning and teaching. So there are six interconnected characteristics as a description of CLT. For the first, classroom goals are focused on all the components such as grammatical, discourse, functional, linguistic, dynamic of communicative competence. Goals therefore must intertwine the organizational aspects of language with the pragmatic. The second is language techniques are designed to engage learners in the pragmatic, authentic functional use of language for meaningful purposes. Organizational language forms are not the central focus, but rather aspects of language that enable learners to accomplish those purposes. The third is fluency and accuracy are seen as complementary principles underlining communicative techniques. At times, fluency may have to take on more importance than accuracy in order to keep learners meaningfully engaged in language use. The fourth one is students in communicative class ultimately have to use the language productively and receptively in unrehearsed contexts outside the classroom. Classroom tasks must therefore equip students with the skills necessary for communication in those contexts. The next is students are given opportunities to focus on their own learning process through an understanding of their own styles of learning and through the development of appropriate strategies for autonomous learning. And the last one is the role of the teacher in that of facilitator and guide, not an all knowing bestower of knowledge. So move to the next materials. Of course, as with every issue is our visit, there are aspects such as first one, beware of giving lip services to principles of CLT, but not grounding your teaching techniques in such principles. If you believe the terms characterizes your teaching, then make sure you do indeed understand and practice your convictions. The next is avoid overdoing certain CLT features and changing in real life. Authentic language in the classroom to the total. Exclusion of any potentially helpful controlled exercise grammatical pointers and other analytical devices. Such an indirect approach only offers the possibility of incidental learning without specific focus on forms, rules, and principles of language organization. And the last one is, it is tempting to think that everyone agrees on the meaning of the term communicative theory or CT, but they don't. As long as you were aware of many possibility versions of CLT, it remains a term that can continue to capture current language teaching approaches. Well, in order to take that perspective, some demythologizing is, in other hands, a brief summary is appropriate, such as the first one is learner-centered instruction. This term applies to curricula as well as the specific techniques can be contrasted with teacher-centered and has received various recent interpretation learning centered instruction. And the next is cooperative and collaborative learning. A curriculum or classroom that is cooperative and therefore not competitive usually involves the above learner-centered characteristics. The third is interactive learning. At the heart of current theories of communicative competence is the essential interactive nature of communication. And the fourth is whole language education, one of the most popular terms currently sweeping through our professions. And the fifth is content-based instruction. Content-based classrooms may yield an increase in the intrinsic motivation and empowerment. Students are focused on subject matter that is important to their lives. Challenges range from advanced from whole new genre of textbooks to training of language teacher to teach concepts and skills across disciplines, professions, and occupation. For the last one is task-based interaction. While there is a good deal of variation among experts on how to describe or define as a task, Peter Skehan's concept of task seems to capture essentials. Last is two interconnected concepts are brought together in whole. The first one is the wholeness of language means that is not the sum of its dissectible and discrete parts. Research shows that children begins perceiving wholes or that is include sentence, emotion, and intonation patterns before parts. Second, language teachers should help their students attempt to do such work and not yield to the temptation to build language only from the bottom up. And the last one is whole language is a perspective, and anchored is a vision of equitable, democratic, diverse society. Teaching is a language enables learners to understand a system of social practice that both constrain and liberate. Part of our job as teachers is to empower our learners to liberate themselves from whatever social, political, or economic force constrains them. So that's all our material for today. Hopefully can useful for you are. Thank you for watching. And last I say, wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.